Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today we're going to be looking at the Fall of Cadia. Now the Fall of Cadia is the starting point for the Gathering Storm series in Warhammer 40,000, where the universe is beginning to advance to the end of the 41st millennium, the year 999. Up to this point I have mostly focused on pre-storm events, so this will mark a shift in focus for the next few episodes, and I will continue to keep you updated as further books come out relating to this event. Now, the architect of Cadia's fall was Abaddon the Despoiler, commander of the Black Legion Chaos Marines and possibly all Chaos forces in the material universe, at least during one of his Black Crusades. In this year, Abaddon finally launched his 13th Black Crusade, somehow for the second time if you are old enough to remember. It was the largest assault by Chaos forces on the Imperium since the Horus Heresy, and its initial thrust was to take out Cadia, the fortress world that until now had resisted all attempts to capture it. The fall began with the Chaos forces making planetfall, fighting through the planet's formidable orbital defences. Whilst the initial waves were landing, the Volscani cataphracts of the Astra Militarum betrayed the defenders, rebelling and killing Cadian High Command. Control of the defences then fell to Rutsaka E. Creed, the colonel of the 8th Cadian Regiment, who was thankfully a skilled strategist. In his new position as the Lord Castellan, Creed managed to contain the first Chaos assault, fighting back the ground forces and the Chaos Armada in orbit. Unfortunately for Cadia, this had not been the true invasion, merely an initial wave of a far more powerful force that followed them. A second wave of Chaos forces followed the first, this time led by Ocanthos, the Lord Purgator of the Black Legion. Ocanthos assaulted the centre of Cadian resistance, the fortress city of Karskraf. However, the Lord Purgator was slain by the living Saint Celestine, who pushed back the Chaos forces long enough for the Imperials to relocate to the Elysian Fields, the largest group of Cadian Pylons on the planet. However, the Imperials had unwittingly advanced Abaddon's plans, as his true aim on Cadia was to destroy these pylons, which had somehow been holding the Eye of Terror back for millennia. As the battle raged, Archmagos Dominus Balisarius Call sought to understand the pylons' functions, which seemed to hold the warp at bay, assisted surprisingly by the Necron Lord Trazyn the Infinite, who had been present at their construction. Surprisingly, Call mastered the mechanisms of the pylons, but not before Abaddon personally led the third assault against the Cadians stationed at the Elysian Fields. Krall used the pylons' mechanisms to cut off the Chaos forces' access to the warp, and even the Eye of Terror began to shrink as the pylons activated, banishing any demons on the planet and forcing the Chaos forces to rely on their physical weapons alone. Realising that leading the assault personally would now be unwise without his Chaos protection, with the pylons active, Abaddon unleashed his failsafe plan, which he hadn't wanted to use but saw as a necessity because of the pylons, and directed his gigantic black stone fortress, the Will of Eternity, a powerful relic from the Gothic War, badly damaged by the assault of the Imperial Fist's Star Fortress Phalanx, to fall onto the surface of Cadia. This mobile fortress was of an immense size, and its fall onto Cadia was like that of a rogue moon. Cadia suffered under this impact, the ground oscillating and vibrating at the massive collision, and the planet's very orbit was altered by this colossal blow. Those beneath the impact site died in a wave of crushing heat, the intense friction of the falling fortress turning the air to fire before crushing them into oblivion, where not even their dust remained. The crater left by the fortress's fall was hundreds of miles in diameter, with the lakes and seas beneath it turned to superheated steam and the tectonic plates of the world shattered. Tidal waves rippled around the world's oceans and supersonic winds filled with particulate matter scoured the landscape. Coastal bastion cities that survived the impact were ripped from their foundations and dragged into the oceans as the landscape of the world was forever altered. Even at the Elysian Fields, half a world away from the impact, the effects were both palpable and destructive. Many sought shelter among the pylons as the scouring winds came. Those who did not perished, choked by the particulate matter or crushed by falling debris like tanks and loose buildings. Even the pylons toppled like trees. As they fell, the power that held back the Eye of Terror failed, and it began to expand again. On Cadia, the initial blast of wind had abated, but birthed hundreds of powerful hurricanes, with more powerful wind and storm-like rain polluted by the ashes of the impact. The sky grew dark as the matter spread into the upper atmosphere, plunging the surface of Cadia into darkness. Combined with the floods and volcanic eruptions, along with whole shattered continents drowning in the planet's newly freed mantle, the Cadians were truly suffering from the end of their world. Across the planet, the remaining pylons fell one by one, and their falling spelled an even greater doom for the world. Now they had fallen, nothing was stopping the expansion of the Eye of Terror, and it moved through space faster than physics would normally allow. The raw power of the warp was coming, and the end of the world was the least of Cadia's problems when it arrived, with the dark laughter of the long-denied Chaos Gods. This would have happened when the Eye was born during the fall of the Eldar, had the Necrons not erected these pylons on the world, despite their construction preceding the fall of the Eldar by 60 million years. Regardless of why they were here and their origin, with their fall, the demons of the warp could finally find purchase on the world of Cadia. As the Eye of Terror now enveloped this one planet, the demons began to appear not insubstantial, as there usually are in the Imperium. They were solid, whole, and fully empowered by the new presence of the warp enveloping this world. They first appeared amidst the craters caused by the fallen Blackstone Fortress, where the powerful impact had already torn apart the veil through the massive loss of sentient life caused there. But these rifts in reality soon spread, rapidly crossing the world. Almost all of Cadia's remaining defences were obliterated in this orbital strike, and the environmental damage caused afterwards. Realising that there was no other way to defend their world, Creed organised the last remaining orbital transports to try and evacuate the 3 million remaining souls on the planet that had once been home to more than 850 million. The evacuation succeeded, although Creed disappeared during the evacuation. As they left, they were witness to Cadia finally ripping itself apart under both tectonic and warp-based stresses, the fall of one of the greatest fortress worlds in the gate of the Imperium requiring the total destruction of the planet itself. The Fall of Cadia was one of the greatest victories Chaos had won in millennia, breaking the impregnable fortress world and allowing the Eye of Terror to finally expand, resuming the consumption that had begun with the fall of the Eldar 10,000 years before. With this, Abaddon the Despoiler was able to carve what is known as the Crimson Path, a route of conquest between the Eye of Terror and Holy Terror itself. This would create a giant rift through the heart of the Imperium, dividing humanity in half. However, there was some hope from the ashes of Cadia. Many powerful warriors of the Imperium had been saved with the aid of a new faction of the Eldar known as the Yount, fleeing through a webway gate on an ice moon in the Cadian system. These Imperials, now known as the Celestinian Crusade, would go on to forge a tentative alliance with these enigmatic Xenos, and sought to resurrect a power who could be counted on to fight this new powerful crusade by the archenemy, Primarch Robut Guilliman of the Ultramarines himself. In the direct aftermath of the Cadian fall, it was expected that the rest of the Cadian solar system would fall in rapid succession. However, despite this new touch of the warp so close to their homes, the people of the Cadian system still resisted the advance of Abaddon's forces. Even with their linchpin world gone, the other worlds were almost as militant as lost Cadia, having survived close to the warp since their founding. The Bellis, Corona, and Agrippinia systems, along with the remains of the Cadian system, lived on and continued to fight the Despoiler's forces on a much more wide-ranging front, upholding the furious stoicism of their lost ally in the face of an impeccable foe. It should be noted that despite Abaddon being a unifying force for the armies of Chaos, many still fought one another, turning upon themselves during the chaotic fall of Cadia, ancient warlords, both human and demonic, attacking one another, attempting to seize their power as they vied for favour with Abaddon. This led to a number of strategic missteps in the heart of battles that allowed for the Imperial forces to capitalise on their weakness and push back the otherwise unstoppable foe. This confusion has allowed for the Imperium to hold their lines against the forces of Chaos, forcing some to overextend their lines as they attempt to crush their ancient Imperial foes. The fires of war still burn in the Cadian gateway systems, distracting the Despoiler and slowing his advance on the holy homeworld of Terra, despite the fact that now it seems inevitable. So that's everything I wanted to mention on the first Gathering Storm today. I will be going through the next two Gathering Storm source books in the next two videos I run, so I hope you enjoy that. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below or send me a private message. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and see you next time on the Vaults of Terra.